Hi guys, welcome to our bonus video on financial fair play, the follow-up to our recent 6-part series on UEFA's game-changing rules, the laws that now affect how European football clubs manage their finances. What conclusion did you come to after watching the previous videos? Are you a fan of FFP or not? You're likely somewhere in between, as FFP certainly has its pros and cons, but ultimately, what conclusion did you come to? Let us know in the comments below. In this video, we're going to look into the future of European football with FFP. How will the rules continue to affect the beautiful game moving forward? The first thing to mention is that FFP rules are about to see a slight change, thanks to Chelsea's recent trickery. The Blues found a lovely loophole in FFP and used it so effectively to their advantage that UEFA are changing the rules. This way, others won't be able to slip through the net again. Financial fair play stipulated that you can only spend from what you make, plus 30 million more. That is about to change slightly too, but more detail on that later in the video. Anyway, in the last year, Chelsea have spent way more than that. How did they do it? Well, they spent big sums of money on plenty of players, but they signed all of those players to extremely long contracts of 7 or even 8 years. Why? So that they could amortize the money spent over the number of years of the contract, instead of putting big fees straight onto 1 year of the books. This meant that in terms of current spending, they only had to show between 12 and 20% of the transfer fee, enabling them to buy more players than they should be able to under the FFP rules. It appears FFP have nipped that one in the bud. However, continuously other clubs are using sponsorships from their own ownership groups to manipulate their books and bring in some more spending money. The likes of PSG and Man City, of course, have been accused of such behaviour. This sort of behaviour isn't taking advantage of legal loopholes in FFP, it's just breaking the rules altogether. As obvious as it may seem, it's really hard to prove this legally. So in this sense, and in the essence of FFP in its entirety, it's hard to see how this will be managed, if it can be managed, and therefore what FFP is all about. As discussed previously, maybe you think UEFA are happy to turn a blind eye anyway. It will be very interesting to see how Newcastle United get on. They are now the club with the richest owners, and they are backed by the state of Saudi Arabia. You wouldn't imagine that those new owners are intent on playing within the rules and perhaps only spending the profits every year, slowly struggling to climb the footballing ladder. Newcastle will likely learn from what has been going on in other state-backed projects and try to bend the rules in that way too. But let's see. So now, a potential new owner knows how to get around FFP, if they have lots and lots of money. Even for a club owner, that helps. And if they are in fact a nation state, or a nation state from the Middle East, it's even easier. Which begs the question, is FFP falling apart? Has it been found out? And if the answer to that is yes, then is it really worth existing anymore? Liverpool and Manchester United are both in the gaze of new state-backed owners. They wouldn't be starting from the bottom by any means, but they might be taking their spending up another level. Is it fair? Is it within the rules? It will be really interesting to see what might happen if one of these two footballing giants, or both, were to be backed by a nation state with billions and billions of pounds. Then the Premier League could have 4 of the 5 clubs in Europe with that particular type of super wealthy owner. The Premier League already earns TV money that dwarfs even La Liga in second place. It is by far the most attractive market and way ahead of the rest. In fact, if it hadn't been for Real Madrid in recent years, the Champions League might have looked more like the FA Cup. If this balance leans further towards England, a number of things will likely happen. Firstly, English clubs will win more and more, likely dominating all 3 of UEFA's European competitions. Even this year, West Ham find themselves going for the UEFA Conference League title, despite being in a relegation battle in the Premier League. Europe's other leagues and clubs will not be happy with this shift, and with good reason. It's not particularly exciting to have the same teams or country dominating. It might not happen, or at least, hopefully it doesn't, but it could well do, and with devastating effect. Such a movement might prompt the European elite that were flirting with the Super League idea to break off and do it, and this might be a direct result of English dominance. Most notably, Juventus, Real Madrid and Barcelona haven't given up the idea. It might create a world with two Super Leagues, the Premier League and the rest of Europe Super League. Just think of the damage that would have on domestic football across the continent, and how European football would look more like the NBA. Perhaps FFP can tackle the new owners in England to try and keep things a little bit more even, but that might prove impossible. Perhaps it would be more beneficial to relax FFP and encourage investment in other European leagues. It's not an easy situation, but these are serious possibilities for the long term. They need to be addressed. In the short term, FFP will likely not change much, nor will its effect. Another Chelsea-type loophole would be really embarrassing for UEFA. Last year, some changes were made to the UEFA FFP laws, but only in the future will we see if they have any effect whatsoever. UEFA billed them as a very big deal, but time will tell if anything actually changes. Naturally, they have to be implemented bit by bit over a few seasons, to allow clubs and the association time to adapt the law book and discover what it takes to meet new requirements. UEFA President Ceferin recently said, UEFA's first financial regulations, introduced in 2010, served its primary purpose. They helped pull European football finances back from the brink and revolutionised how European football clubs are run. However, the evolution of the football industry, alongside the inevitable financial effects of the pandemic, has shown the need for wholesale reform and new financial sustainability regulations. Do you agree? Ceferin continued then, UEFA has worked together with its stakeholders across European football to develop these new measures to help the clubs to address these new challenges. These regulations will help us protect the game and prepare it for any potential future shock while encouraging rational investments and building a more sustainable future for the game. Aside from the continuous debate and controversy over FFP, its effect and its influence, these new rule changes will also form the future reputation of the laws, and perhaps in 5 or 10 years' time, we will see the changes in the effects of FFP based on the alterations in regulations. In summary, these changes are the no overdue payables rule, created in order to serve creditors and perhaps keep an even closer eye on clubs' financial books. Now FFP controls will be performed every quarter and late payments will be taken a lot more seriously. So they say. Secondly, the ability to deviate from the break-even rule has been changed to 60 million euros over 3 years instead of 30 million over 3 years, giving clubs some more wiggle room on the balance sheet. This means that over a 3-year period, clubs can spend 60 million more than they earn, with those losses covered by the owner. This doesn't amount to a culture shift by any means, as 20 million per year of owner investment cannot at all transform a club. It's more of a practical rule change aimed at helping the clubs to meet the financial requirements. Essentially, it will allow clubs to lose an extra 10 million a year. Who knows if this limit will continue to be extended in the future? Clubs might argue that the change isn't significant enough. The biggest changes in FFP regulations have been the squad cost requirements. This will mean limits to spending on wages, transfers and agent fees to 70% of club revenue. Assessments will be performed on a timely basis and breaches will result in predefined financial penalties and sporting measures. These rules technically began in June 2022 but are being gradually implemented. So FFP does seem to have a future, and UEFA definitely wanted to stay relevant. Perhaps these rule changes are an act of authority after a lot of ill word has been spread regarding FFP. The main things to watch out for in the next decade, however, are how FFP rules seem to be broken or bent, what UEFA respond to these events in terms of sanctioning clubs, and therefore showing how truly legitimate or powerful FFP is or isn't. We will finally see if the current changes being implemented at the moment will have a great effect, and who will they serve? If this decade is anything like the last one, then FFP will still be making the headlines at very least. Let us know if you can see any big changes for the future in the comments. and are they for the better or for the worse?